Hello all, and thank you for joining us today. I hope everyone enjoyed yesterday's event, and for those tuning in just for today, we have another great lineup of speakers for you to discuss Saudi Arabia's construction market. So just to recap on yesterday, we heard from experts on how Saudi Arabia is progressing with sustainable development from the likes of AESB, Katerra and Cundall. And then we closed our conference hearing from three of Saudi Arabia's multi-billion-dollar projects in Amala, Diriyah Gate Development Authority, and NEOM, as well as one of the world's leading interior contractors, DEPA Group. So we're going to begin day 2 of our Leaders in Construction KSA Summit with our Future of Construction in Saudi Arabia panel, which will discuss how the kingdom has changed over the past 10 years in terms of gender diversity and the acceleration of entertainment projects, as well as looking into the Vision 2030 agenda. So joining us today is 4 prestigious names from the region's construction sector in Mott MacDonald's Managing Director, Christopher Seymour, the Head of Middle East for Reed Smith, Sachin Kerur, HK Partner John McKevitt, and Resa Gulf Scaffolding General Manager Arshad. Gentlemen, it's great to have you on the panel this afternoon.
Thank you.
Good to be on. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
No problem. And as always, for those watching, I want to give you a brief introduction for each of our panelists today before we begin. So Christopher Seymour has more than 25 years experience in the industry and manages the 1,300 strong Mott MacDonald operation in the Middle East and has worked in most of the major cities in the region over the past 10 years. Sachin Kerur has a significant amount of experience in advising government and the private sector on privatized and publicly procured infrastructure and development works, particularly across the Middle East and India. John McKevitt heads up HKA's Bahrain and Eastern KSA regions and leads commissions on HKA's most complex and technically demanding claims assignments, frequently advising on claims and commercial matters on major projects within challenging environments. And finally, Arshad has over 20 years experience within the construction and industrial sector, delivering revenue enhancement across areas such as scaffolding, formwork, powered access, and mast climbers. I've given the introductions, let's dive straight in. So Saudi Arabia is one of the countries within the Middle East and actually across the world that is gaining a lot of interest for its development as a nation. So from the introductions, guys, it seems that you all have spent quite a considerable amount of time in Saudi Arabia over the years without making you all sound too old. So tell me, how much has Saudi Arabia construction industry changed over the past decade? Ash, perhaps you can start off with us. Tell us a little bit about this. You've spent quite a lot of time in Saudi Arabia. Have you been amazed by how much it has evolved?
Yes, I think there's a real tangible difference within the last couple of years even. There's a kind of, irrespective of the fact that the market is quite tough and tight at the moment, there is a kind of optimism, there is a kind of change in the outlook of the way people are perceiving projects to come along and how they want them to be governed and carried forward. So I think even with the people working within those sectors, whether it's industrial or whether it's construction, there is still, regardless of current situation, there is an optimism that things are improving, systems are improving, modern methods are being looked at, new initiatives are being put in place. There's an encouragement for female participation. So all these things are definitely having an effect, and it's very visible.
Absolutely, and John, as obviously you head up HK's Eastern, Saudi Arabia regions. What have you noticed during your time at HKA? What's been the change and progression?
In my experience, I've seen a dramatic change in development, even over the past half a decade. We've got public transport systems that were never there before. We've got major capital expenditure on new airports, on metros, on bus stations. And we've also had further development. The capacity of the oil and gas in the region has increased dramatically. And there's been huge upgrades in the city centres, the major cities, as well as the towns. Riyadh is basically unrecognised from 10 years ago compared to now. It's a vibrant, busy, becoming a more cosmopolitan city. So there's been a dramatic increase, a big movement forward. And with the 2030 plans in place, that's even going to accelerate and move even further forward. So it's exciting times. Saudi's taken some brave and bold steps, and it looks like they're going to take even bigger leaps with the 2030 plan.
Okay, and as mentioned by Ash there, one of the main changes there is the role of women that are being introduced into Saudi Arabia's construction market. Chris, I want to come to you next on this question because Mott MacDonald introduced a gender diversity event in Dubai recently as part of a partnership with the British Embassy. Unfortunately, it couldn't go ahead because of obvious reasons. But I'd like to get your perspective on this, on whether you're doing something similar in Saudi Arabia. Do you think there's appetite for these kind of events to promote women in Saudi Arabia?
Thanks, Ashley. Good afternoon, everybody. I suppose I'd like to start first of all by offering my condolences to the people of Kuwait for the passing of their ruler yesterday. We've got a full team in Kuwait, so it's quite a sad day for them there. Turning to your question, Ashley, I think there's across the world the participation rate of women in construction is a little over 10%, which honestly is not a great figure. And what we can see is that whilst the Middle East as a region probably started a lot less than that, has actually accelerated quite a lot in the last few years to probably just about meet that. So it's round about global average, but honestly, this is something that we all need to work on. As a business, Mott MacDonald Group is around about 30%, but honestly, I'm not proud of that either. There's no doubt about it that high-performing teams are characterized by the fact of being cross-gender and cross-culture, and we see this time and again. And what I can see is that KSA has started to pick up on this. The country itself has got a target of 30% participation rate of women in the country across the board, not just construction. So we've certainly got a way to go, but I see that the construction industry and those projects coming through as part of the transformation plan, particularly around the gigacities, can play their part. At the moment, the majority at a consultancy level, the majority of delivery is really at a design stage. Now, design gives us probably a better opportunity to involve females in the process of construction. So at the moment, I wouldn't say that it's Saudi Arabia is probably round about on par with the rest of the region, which is really good. Our challenge is going to be when these projects get through onto site and it moves through the supervision stage, which is really the stage where it has in the past been hardest to get that participation. That's going to be the real test. But listen, there is one opportunity that I feel is untapped out there, and that is that the amount of GCC nationals that are female going through university and colleges on engineering subjects is proportionately, on a proportional basis, higher than many other parts of the world. The challenge is that when they graduate, they're not actually necessarily following through into a career in engineering or construction. So I don't buy the fact that the qualification is not out there. It is out there. What we need to do as an industry is actually to make it look like a far more attractive place, a far more welcoming place, and a far more accepting place for women to be part of this story. So I think that the absolutely the future for me around this particular subject is actually full of opportunity.
Okay. And Sachin, obviously Chris mentioned there that he said there was 30% of your colleagues at Mott MacDonald are females. Is that correct, Chris?
Yes, in our group, yeah. Mm.
Yeah, okay. So, Sachin, it'd be good to get, do you have a similar percentage at Reed Smith in terms of women colleagues? And Chris mentioned there that obviously there has been challenges. So, why do you think it has taken so long for women to be finally kind of recognised for engineering roles in the region, and particularly in Saudi Arabia? Good to get your perspective on this.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. And again, congratulations to Construction Week for hosting another excellent event and persevering through this period. I would find it very difficult not to endorse everything Chris has just said. I think the issue lies, I think, at a macro and, if you like, a micro level, and we can use policy for a large chunk of initiatives driving female participation. But the reality is the industry just doesn't have enough role models. It doesn't have enough of senior women and leadership positions to really inspire the people that Chris was talking about, those that hold very strong and academic qualifications, to then pursue that. And I think, even at a micro level, I think we just don't, or the industry doesn't do enough to create the environments to enable women both to participate in the industry, but also to do the other things which they need to do and they want to do. And I think until we increase training and job placements, we have policies to report discrimination, we bring inspirational leadership, it's going to be still an upward struggle. But I do agree with Chris. I think it is changing. We need to highlight success stories. I think the industry just doesn't do enough of that. It's not very good at its own PR, and that's where I think it falls down as compared to other industries. We need flexibility, we need cultural change, we need that sort of transformation. So it's across the board, but I do sometimes feel we don't often highlight the very best that we do as an industry, and I think that is sometimes the reason we don't get the progression and women participation in the industry. I think is a case in point.
Okay, and Ash, do you agree with Christopher's and Sachin's points there? Do you think there needs to be more awareness in Saudi Arabia and for cultural change? Are you seeing this happening at all?
We're certainly trying to encourage it at our own kind of micro level, if you like. We're part of the Tamimi group, and we actively encourage women to come into the industry. We take on graduates. Last year we took on something like 50 graduates, and we put them through a program, a sponsorship program, just to bring them into the industry. And 50% of them decided to move on to companies like Aramco and SABIC. We take that on board, and this is fine because we're actively pursuing this agenda of trying to encourage more people into the industry. Interestingly, last year there was about 89,000 graduates in the engineering discipline, out of which 2% were female in Saudi Arabia. So there is a huge gap, not only for women coming into the industry, but even as an overall percentage. I mean, there was something like 1.19 million graduates, so roughly 7% were engineering graduates. So, the industry needs to do something to attract these people. And I think the government is certainly trying to encourage it, because they're trying to now, through other programs, initiatives, and through Saudiization, etc., encouraging companies from the 14th of January 2021. There is a requirement to have about 20% of local national Saudi engineers on board for every company. So this is one way to try and promote it, but I think it needs to be publicised a lot more.
Okay.
We had the same thing even in the UK. Actually, we had many years in my younger days. I'm not going to kind of go back and dwell too much on how many years ago that was, but it took a while to get women onto site. And I think the same thing is happening here. We're getting women, we're attracting women into our industry, but they'll end up taking accountancy jobs or they'll end up taking marketing jobs. So we've got about 20% females in our office, but they're occupying those type of jobs. Trying to get them onto site or trying to get them into that type of environment is going to be the next challenge.
Okay. And John, just kind of summarise this part of the discussion again. What's sort of the outlook for women at HKA? Again, it'd be good to get a percentage of how many women are involved with HKA. Can you elaborate a little bit more to us about that?
Yeah, we're actively looking to improve not just diversity, but actual true inclusion. So we want to develop that. We want to give our resources, whatever their ethnic, religious, or gender background is, give them the right environment in order for them to achieve and exceed. And as the guys rightly noted here, is we need, at the moment, currently, what we need to do is allow that environment to create the future leaders that will inspire the next generation coming through and increase the number of female or whatever the minority is into engineering, into construction, into that field. And I think that by doing that at the moment, this is not a short-term, this is going to take a long-term commitment. And companies such as ourselves are very committed to make our environment somewhere where a female colleague will feel comfortable, will feel like their career will develop, will also make allowances for their family life and everything else. And I feel like, in my own experience, I can see Saudi, it has been a bit behind the times, but it's taking massive leap forward at the moment between the changes happening now, and that is opening a huge opportunity to previous generations didn't have that opportunity. So now with the way that the atmosphere and the environment is changing, it's becoming it's becoming an easier place for a female to get involved in construction at every echelon level. But I think we're still at the early chapters of this story, and we just need to keep an open mind and creating that environment to allow us to have those future leaders that will inspire the next generation coming through.
Yeah, excellent insights there from all of you there on obviously a quite topical subject at the moment within the region. But I want to move the attentions onto the next part of the discussion, where I want to delve in sort of the acceleration of entertainment projects that are cropping up in Saudi Arabia. Now, the nature of these projects are gaining a lot of traction and attention across the region. There's huge appetite for cinema construction at the moment, and there's theme parks being built in the likes of Katerra. So, Chris, as a consultancy firm, how much of an impact do you think the likes of cinema construction and theme parks are going to have on Saudi Arabia's market? And are you involved with any of these projects?
In terms of the not directly, but in terms of construction spend, I think it's the volume is really on the theme park piece. Clearly the market in Saudi is starting from quite a low base. Honestly, theme parks are not apart from you can probably separate out Dubai. It's not a big piece of the Middle East market anyway. And certainly in Saudi in the past, it was of course absent. So now these entertainment venues are coming on, and so we are seeing it as quite a big push. That's really because it's coming from a very low base. I think that what we probably need to do is what we're seeing is the broadening of that theme to be not just about entertainment, but really seeing that merge into a lifestyle play. And so what has really happened here is that that as the world, if you like, has gone through the sort of the conventional cinema, fairground, if you like, theme park, and then started considering the more experience-led lifestyle venue, what has happened in Saudi Arabia, they sort of jumped over those initial steps and it's straight into that theme of lifestyle. So rather than we're seeing, rather than just a formal retail development, that is now becoming much more about the customer experience, and it does include certain aspects around entertainment, not just films either, but other entertainment facilities in there. So it's quite what we're seeing is actually quite a modern approach to it, and because there is a lack of those facilities in country, you're seeing quite a bit of it pick up again proportionately, probably a lot more than other parts of the world or indeed region that have already got some of those facilities and assets in place, and clearly still have to let them run their course and their life cycle. In KSA, you've really got a new market around this, so it's actually quite exciting. And at the moment, it forms a reasonably large segment of certainly of the built asset output. Yeah.
Okay. And Sachin, do you agree with Chris's comments there? He said it's quite an exciting time for Saudi Arabia in terms of entertainment construction. So do you agree with these views? And why now in terms of these projects coming up? Why haven't they been built kind of previously?
Well, that is a question for others, I suspect, that latter one. I think I hate to keep agreeing with Chris, but I will do. He's absolutely right. I think the view of entertainment and vision, Vision 2030 says it. It talks about entertainment being indispensable to our quality of life. And I think what we are seeing in a sort of socio-economics fashion is entertainment forming a fulcrum around that. I think if Saudi can achieve the development of an entertainment sector that leads directly to citizens being fulfilled in that sort of socio environment, that I think is a huge step forward, as against too many projects in the region in the past which have effectively been glorified real estate plays and haven't really endorsed the sort of the statement of quality of life. These should not be just real estate segments. They should be strong anchors to the development of a fulfilling approach to conditions and in a social sense in Saudi Arabia. So very much agree with Chris, but I think there will always be a temptation for people to peel off and try to turn them into straight vanilla real estate projects. And I think if they can avoid that, I think we could see some really exciting things happening. Okay.
And there's been a lot of talk at the moment surrounding the circular economy at the moment. I want to try and get everyone's opinions on this. So I want to find out from you, how Saudi Arabia used circular economy approaches, and how do you think this is going to affect the construction sector in the kingdom? Do you think there should be improvements in reusing waste, and has there been a response to this? John, perhaps you could start off.
Yeah. There's been big movement towards the Saudi Arabia government embracing a move towards a more environmental and sustainable future, and part of this will feed directly into this circular economy. Saudi is currently actively working with the UN on its new environmental targets, especially on its reusables, and considering how much capital expenditure is going forward over the next 8 to 9 years on these mega projects, and also the upgrading of the older facilities in terms of oil and gas, this will play a very, very important part in order to meet those targets and achieve the vision that Saudi has set itself as a more dynamic and environmentally responsible nation.
Okay. And Ash, as a subcontractor, how do you think the circular economy is going to affect the construction sector in particular in Saudi?
I think there's as kind of John alluded to, there's a long way to go, and there are initiatives that are set up. The Saudi Investment Recycling Company, which is, I think, wholly owned by the Public Investment Fund, is encouraging companies to get heavily involved in recycling, waste to energy management. But the big gains, and I know SABIC as well have been working very hard, and they've opened a recycling plant in Germany. They're doing something in the Netherlands, and they're trying to encourage this here in Saudi Arabia as well. From a subcontractor point of view, I think for us, we're not directly involved, because these are usually organised and run by big EPC contractors. So we usually come in behind these guys to kind of offer some basic generic services. But the movement towards this is very, very important. And like you were saying yesterday, you were talking about some of the other big Geiger projects. NEOM is fundamentally based on some of this notion of creating a circular economy. And I think that's the way it's going to go forward. I think the big gains from an oil and gas, which is a sector we're heavily involved in, is the kind of waste you get from flares, and from water which is created, and the brine that's created and then fed back into the system. So the potential for these areas is huge, and there's a lot of work to be done. So we're at the very, very early stages at this moment. But the initiatives have been put in place. Now it's a matter of time and development, I think as SABIC is getting more involved, as Aramco have taken over SABIC, I think the potential for opening up a whole industry and recycling and improving the kind of waste is something that will definitely have a big impact over the next few years.
Okay. And Chris, off air, you mentioned that there's been a lot of interest for the circular economy in Saudi Arabia. Can you perhaps give your thoughts, and do you agree with the other guys, what they've said?
Yeah, I think so. I think Saudi Arabia as a nation is doing really well around this. And Ash mentioned NEOM. Most of the gigacities have got the use of renewables, and the treatment of waste has been quite a big part of their let's say their reason for being. So I think that from that perspective, I think the nation is doing quite well. Honestly, I don't think construction industry has yet got an answer, however, to the circular economy. It's still very much a linear approach, and I think it's certainly over 30%, maybe over 35% of total waste in the region is down to construction. So I think the construction industry has actually got to come up to the mark. I think, as I say, I think the nation is doing really well in terms of those initiatives that are involved in the big developments that are going on. The construction industry has got to come to the mark. I think later on we're going to be talking about maybe the use of offsite. That certainly saves waste, and most of those organisations, in order to be competitive, they really need to look after every ounce of waste. So the motivation, I think, is far more aligned with the commercial aspects of what they're doing. But if we continually, in terms of built assets, if we continually construct in situ rather than looking at even precast or offsite, then it's going to be very difficult to really come up to the mark as far as the challenges around the circular economy are concerned.
And obviously, we all know that this year there's been a lot of difficulties and challenges with the impact of COVID-19, and then obviously that came with the oil price fluctuation as well, which impacted Saudi Arabia in particular. John, it'd be good to get your thoughts on this, on how you think this is going to affect the construction market in particular. And what do you think is realistic at the moment for Saudi as we approach 2021 in its recovery?
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. I think there will be an impact. I think it would be very naive to believe that this was all going to be resolved by the end of the year. I think there is going to be pressure on capital expenditure going forward into next year, and that's also going to limit the amount of future procurement and contracts being let, as well as some value engineering. I think people will see it mainly as a negative, but ultimately on our line of work, there is going to be a potential upside that if the time is used correctly, that extra time while waiting on the capital expenditure can be utilized effectively to de-risk projects, improve the design, improve the stress test in terms of the commercial viability as well as constructability, and not overcommit, rush things out to a very busy market. We've got now a bit of breathing room that we now can trickle out these projects as and when needed, and also it allows that the biggest issues we see in disputes in the Saudi market is contracts being let without the design being fully developed to a level that's suitable, and also very restrictive contract periods and very tight deadlines aggressively, and then finally commercially being unreasonable in terms of the terms of the commercial terms. If we can address the design issue in this period, and we can take a realistic look at the construction periods, that will de-risk a lot of the future projects led on, and allow us to deliver 2030 a lot of the plans of that on time and on budget by using this extra time to our benefit.
Okay. And Sachin, I want to come to you for the next question, because I think you'd be best placed to answer it. So there's been quite a lot of changes in procurement in Saudi Arabia. So there was a new procurement law that came into place last year. It'd be good to know from you as our legal expert at the moment, how this has fared so far, and are Saudi developers and employers willing to work as stakeholders in the industry? Is there a need for variation management at all?
Yeah, Ashley, thank you. I mean, it'll be really helpful to hear from Ash in this regard, because he's very much at the coalface of this stuff. Look, I think it's too early to tell. We have had this new regime really came into being at the end of the year last year. So, we've had so much of this year affected. I think what is useful to understand is why it came in and what it has actually brought. And so whilst it might be too early to talk about its effectiveness, I think one can anticipate that effectiveness. So really in relation to streamlining procurement and bringing transparency to procurement regimes, I think that's a massive step forward, because it was one of the largest complaints that existed in the industry, and also to bring the ability to introduce innovation into solutions when one tenders. I think that's going to be a game changer. So I think a lot of the guts of these regulations are very, very strong and sound. And then you've also got forward to the execution phase of these projects, again allowing more innovation, bringing an ability for the government body to pay subcontractors if there's a fight between the contractor and the subcontractor. Bringing arbitration as a dispute resolution mechanism, I think that's really, really important. I think that will give so many stakeholders far more comfort that if there is a problem, then people with strong technical knowledge can adjudicate a problem, and I think that will have wide ramifications, alongside the development of arbitration centres, which John in particular is very familiar around in the kingdom. So I think all in all, we have some really strong ground rules. I mean, I think it's also worth mentioning that the law does not apply to certain bodies like Aramco or SABIC or others. So there is there's a chunk of the market that it would not apply to us at present. But I still think it's a very forward-looking set of regulations, and time will tell. I just wanted to come back. If I quickly, Ashley, to a point that John made in that last question, I 100% agree. I think whilst there is time on our hands, it would be criminal to waste that. And I think what we are seeing, the positive side of the last few months in Saudi, is a lot of projects going through that sort of introspection, perhaps more realism being injected into programs. And I think that in itself could lead to a really strong delivery when we come out of this period. So, I mean, certainly we're hearing clients talking about much more stakeholder involvement now because they have the time to do it. And I think that's really positive.
Okay. And as Sachin said then, Ash, it'd be quite good to get your views on the procurement side at Resa Gulf Scaffolding. So what have you noticed so far?
There's the number of fronts. Sachin mentioned Aramco, SABIC, etc. So these very big organisations are encouraging. Aramco have a program. It's called ICTIVA, and this is they're encouraging local companies to manufacture, to produce goods, and they want local companies to procure from these companies on their projects. And there is a weighted point system, which then helps you to qualify for being able to tender for projects. And so we're involved in this as a subcontractor. We're having to qualify or pre-qualify for some of these contracts on this basis of our scores and our ratings as to how much we buy and procure internally within the kingdom. With this, there are some other initiatives where the government has created online bidding systems, tendering systems, where you have to disclose where you're procuring from, what sort of materials you're purchasing, and how much you're importing in. And then again, it becomes this kind of points-based system. So the drive clearly from these big organizations and even from government organizations is to encourage more local production and more local procurement within the kingdom itself. So we're seeing a big shift.
Okay. And I want to move along the next part of this discussion. Obviously, there's a lot of topics to discuss with this panel. So I want to move on to there's real big again traction and interest for private and public partnerships at the moment. So Chris, I'd like to hear from you. What's the appetite for PPPs at the moment in Saudi Arabia? Is there what's the comparison in terms of other markets, such as the UAE, for example?
Oh, it's as far as KSA is concerned, PPP is concerned, it's really strong. And in terms of volume of those deals, far stronger than Dubai. But having said that, of course, the country is a lot larger. The ambitions around infrastructure development are also a lot larger. So we have seen over the last. So this isn't just really the beginning of the pandemic at all. This has been happening over the last couple of years. That the initiative around the considering the creation and delivery of infrastructure assets by the PPP has been a significant part of the consultancy market in KSA. I think there's the fundamental of PPPs, however, is first of all they need to be bankable. They do move quite slowly. So if you've got a project that needs to be delivered fast because of an urgent situation or there's an urgent need of an asset, then PPP probably is not the answer for that. However, what I would say is that most of the time you can always test against that form of procurement. What you're getting is not just the not just a funding route, you're also getting the expertise of the private sector to really find the most efficient way to deliver that particular asset. And that includes not just the creation of the asset, it also includes the operation of that asset over a long period. So it certainly is not, it's not done because of a lack of cash up front from a government level. It's done for that value add. But honestly, in the region, KSA is the largest PPP market at the moment. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of a big upswing in that. Maybe Sash will disagree with that one, but that's what I think.
Sash, would you disagree?
No, I wouldn't. I'd certainly think, you know, on the point of bankability, I think, you know, Saudi provides a very strong bankability framework, if you like. I think the other point, perhaps, Chris, I ought to mention is, you know, the essence of PPP, in whatever guise it is, and of course PPP can mean many different things. It is the ability to bring in private sector expertise and operate with a light touch from the public sector. And I think it doesn't matter whatever the sort of more conditions you have or apply to a PPP program. Ultimately, it is that sort of understanding that drives through the fabric of a PPP program, and so the ability for government perhaps to take a little step back and allow the private sector to innovate and bring its skills, and those countries that have allowed that to happen have been the most successful. But you know, we shouldn't forget that Saudi has had a rich history of delivering private and project finance through its PP programs. So the concepts are not unfamiliar to Saudi. It will be around bankability demand, but I think what we'll also see is if you look at the capitalization of many Saudi corporates, they are very strong and they can play a very leading role in PPP, unlike a number of other Middle Eastern countries where you still rely on the foreign sponsor. I think you've got an excellent opportunity with Saudi businesses to play a part, and that they of course understand Saudi risk and Saudi sovereign risk better than anyone, and therefore potentially you could have a very strong program built around the expertise and local understanding of the local business.
Okay, and again, I want to move on to discuss a little bit more about the details of the Vision 2030 agenda, which is obviously been very pivotal in driving all these sort of massive projects that are coming up. But again, I'm talking about COVID again, but it's obviously a topical subject at the moment. It's caused quite a lot of disruption and pressures on supply chains and finances and materials. So, John, as you're sort of again heading up the eastern kind of side of Saudi Arabia for HKA, what have you noticed in terms of, has there been any drop off in productivity in Saudi Arabia?
Yes, thanks. Great question. Look, initially, when COVID first unfortunately affected us, the impact was reasonably rapid. The borders closed quite quickly. That affected the import and export of materials. We also had travel curfews, restricted time frames in terms of attendance on site, and a lot of the mega projects in Saudi Arabia work on 24-hour construction, relatively lean procurement and material delivery methodology. So these have had a massive disrupting impact on contractors and subcontractors in some of the mega projects. Afterwards, there was legacy issues about labour, the demand for labour in the kingdom, and limited availability due to the immigration rules, and they were only now recently been slightly loosened. So unfortunately, the market in Saudi Arabia has been dramatically affected over the last 6 months. And unfortunately, it's a part of COVID that financially cash flow has been impacted, and that has trickled down from capital expenditure to major employers, down into their contractors, and then on into subcontractors and suppliers. So we're seeing a a multiple amount of issues and pressure that was being put on in relation to COVID and the measures in order to prevent the outbreak and spread further. However, on a more optimistic view, things seem to be moving in the right direction at the moment. Borders are starting to open, the visa processes are starting to reopen again. So we're hoping that a lot of these initial problems that we've had over the 6 months, we're coming to an end of those, and it should bring relief to contractors and subcontractors in the region.
Mm. And obviously, Saudi
if I could just
yeah, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to add to that, Ashley, if you don't mind me saying. Recently the figures published, I think yesterday, showed, from what John was saying, they were showing a contraction over the last quarter of about 7% in the economy. But the upside is the expectation, probably around the first quarter, is an expectation of an increase of around about 3.1%, which kind of falls in line with what John was saying. As the borders start to open up, as companies start greasing the wheels again, some confidence comes in, maybe some capital spend will start again. This will have this is critical, actually, and again, going back to what John was saying with regards to liquidity, this is a big pressure point for companies at the moment, because everyone is kind of delaying payments. There's issues with people doing the work, but they're getting delayed by the time they get paid. So this is again affecting everyone from the very top end, from EPC type contractors, all the way down to the bottom end of the food chain.
Okay, and Ash, you made a really good point earlier with regards to Saudiization for the kingdom, where you said that there's government targets being made for January 2021 for engineering roles to try and get more Saudis on board for these projects. But do you think it is difficult to attract Saudis to these type of roles at the moment? And normally the option before is that they would recruit from abroad. So have you noticed a change at all there?
Yes, I think when from even a couple of years ago, I don't want this to sound negative, but the desire that was prevalent a few years ago for many graduates to come into schemes has definitely increased so much over the last few years. You can feel the difference; it's tangible, and the people are keen. They're looking for jobs. The problem we have in the construction and the kind of oil and gas sector is, being able to get the kind of quotas that are being requested, and until the government kind of assist, I think, and there are some programs that do assist, but just to give you some kind of feel for what I'm talking about, on some Aramco sites, the requirements for Saudiization and encouragement of using Saudis on site can be as high as 70%. So this is a huge demand, because you have to consider it's not just about being able to hire people, it's also having the right type of candidate, the competency skills, well-trained individuals. By the time you pull all that together, the burden on the companies to produce this is quite high. So that's the kind of concern that we've got, especially as a subcontractor. How do we manage this? There's a kind of downward pressure on rates. The market is tight, so everyone is very, very competitive. And then on top of this, when you have this desire that you want to encourage more locals to be involved, but to meet these quotas, you've got higher salaries, you've got low competency rates, higher training, it becomes a bit more difficult. So the challenge is there. But on a positive note, we're very actively engaged. We're working with some government institutions, some local colleges, universities, and there's a couple of programs that assist by giving grants, or they give part payments towards salaries. So we're trying to take the benefit of this and bring more engineers on.
Okay. And we probably got time for one more question. So considering we're talking about the future of construction at the moment, what does the future hold for Saudi Arabia for its construction market? Do you think we're going to be leaning towards more, technology-driven methods, and are we going to be sort of relying heavily on things like off-site construction? Chris, perhaps you could start us off with this.
Yeah, and I think that definitely the ambition is there, and in those locations that are well served with transport links, there's absolutely the opportunity for it. Off-site depends on a market, and that market needs to be generated by demand from the individual developments. And so there probably needs to be a real push from a government level to start the implementation of using off-site solutions, including precast and other design for manufacture componentry. One of the restrictions is that some of the gigacity developments are not well served by a transport link. So it would be obviously necessary to actually position any plant serving those projects very close in location. That's a lot of investment, and so we need to see if the market can actually make that work. But definitely across the corridor across the middle from Dammam, Riyadh, and Jeddah, absolutely, this should be possible. It works in terms of a sustainability piece. It works around a health and safety, and as I said before, it also helps that circular economy argument too. At scale, there are definitely time and cost advantages to get as well. So overall, it's an important, I believe it's an important component of the future construction in Saudi Arabia. I don't think the rest of the region has taken advantage of it sufficiently. I think there have been missed opportunities in other parts of the region in this respect. But I think that clearly Saudi at the forefront of the development has got the opportunity to actually make a difference there. So really for me, it's about that market has to be created through demand, and then the constraint is really to see how to get the logistics to work.
Okay. And Sachin, final words from you. What's your perspective on Saudi Arabia's construction market? Where do you see the direction of the kingdom going with regards to the construction industry?
Yes, actually, I mean, I think that just a couple of add-ons to what Chris is saying. I think from a lawyer's perspective, unsurprisingly, welcoming initiatives like the development of arbitration in the kingdom around the construction industry. I think that will be very, very positive. And alongside that, I think strong, robust documentation, clear contractual obligations established, perhaps an emphasis on a less adversarial relationship between stakeholders, and then looking at sort of more on the execution side, perhaps to develop and continue to develop what Saudi has been doing in project management, organisation skills. I think this is where Saudi's way ahead of everyone else. I think it continue to develop that its PMO skills in the industry, and local content. I think continuing to drive local content requirements and to create value in the local economy. So I think that is all very positive. I also think that the initiation of more technology into the industry, and that I think will have an impact on some of the things we discussed earlier. The drive to increase female and Saudiization in the industry, and more companies and construction companies see themselves less as traditional construction companies, but almost pseudo technology companies. So I think that's going to be very influential over the next few years in Saudi.
And I think we could talk for hours about this, but I obviously just want to get the final thoughts from John and Ash. John, what are your thoughts? Where do you see Saudi going?
Thanks, Ashley. I think it's very positive. I think we've made big gains in the last decade. There's a huge room for improvement still in sort of all aspects of what we covered today, between more leaner systems, better health and safety, more inclusion, and better use of our money and our time. I see Saudi making big strides forward. I think the want for change is there in the industry. I think we can make that. We can make those leaps and steps. And one of the things that I see over the last decade is that we're trying to become more transparent. We're trying to make it a more safer place, a more secure place to invest and develop. And by having these improvements in arbitration and improvements in procurement law and gradual improvements in all these other systems and facilities, it's allowing it to become a more definitely a place where people can now invest and believe that they're safe to develop and invest without to be worried about the systems that were in place working against them. So greater transparency, I think, is going to be a big part to play, but the kingdom is already making big movements towards that. So I've been encouraged what I've seen so far, and I expect it to continue.
Okay. And Ash, from some final words from you?
Yeah, I would echo what John has just said. I think there's some big leaps and bounds we've seen over the last few years. I think Saudi Arabia is trying very hard to encourage investment in new technologies. I think this is coming, and I think this will help. Talking about what Chris was saying with kind of some of the modular designs, precast, this is coming in some shape or form. And how quickly will it be an accelerated program? I'm not entirely sure, but it's coming, and so I think it's very positive. And Sachin's views on arbitration and reorganising some of the contractual and legal obligations, this is a very big step forward as well.
Excellent stuff, guys. Really fascinating discussion there about the positive changes happening in Saudi Arabia's construction market. Chris, Sachin, John, Ash, thank you all for taking time out of your day. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thanks for agreeing to take part.
No problem.
Likewise, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And we will be back with our final panel of the conference, which we're going to be exploring the rise of design and modular construction. We will see you all shortly.
NEOM is inspiring,
motivating,
is a platform of dreamers and doers.
We talk about NEOM as an accelerator of human progress. It's a place where we can start again almost and make a very positive impact on the world and the environment. A place for dreamers and doers, as we say.
NEOM is the opportunity to develop something brand new.
And so the opportunity to come in and start shaping the future is such an incredible opportunity. I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by some great minds and great talents. We are pioneers in a new space.
This is a very new part of Saudi Arabia for the young generation.
We've set our standards very high.
What we want to do in NEOM is change the idea of urban elements. We want to redefine them.
Better humans, better society, interact with technology.
We want this project to show the world that you can develop a world futuristic city, but also in harmony with nature.
NEOM is called the world's most ambitious project. So I don't think anyone can move down here without it saying it's not going to be a challenge. But I think for anyone that does come, it'll be such a rewarding experience.
What they define in NEOM, I think, is a great opportunity to be the best we ever imagined or dreamed to be as a human.
We will be working, I'm sure, day and night just to see this dream come true.
I feel responsibility. We are building something for the future generations.
We're not talking about pure sustainability, but we're actually talking about enhancing the environment and bringing water back to the surface in NEOM.
It's a place where we're going to reinvent conservationism, where there's going to be exceptional livability.
The journey of transforming the dream of NEOM to reality is already on.
NEOM is the perfect destination where you are proactively involved in bringing health and well-being in every single part of your life. So when talking about NEOM, people ask me, how do you describe NEOM? NEOM is the new future.
NEOM is the opportunity to develop something brand new.
It's an accelerator of human progress.
The world is in flux. Every day we face new challenges which demand us to think differently, to always balance algorithms and instincts, to embrace experts and entrepreneurs, to combine virtual and reality, to think laterally and search out the connections others fail to make. At Mott MacDonald, we look at challenges from a fresh perspective. We never stop asking, what if? We are pioneers with a thirst for innovation. Our restless curiosity propels us and our clients forward, turning obstacles into sustainable pathways, never losing sight of the human impact of our actions and the responsibility that this entails. With every project, we create a new space, a space to think, a space to challenge, a space to question, a space to partner, a space to grow. A space for open opportunities. We're Mott MacDonald. We open opportunities with connected thinking.
For us, it's about creating collaborative working environments with our clients and making work enjoyable. It's not about what we do, but how we do it. We spend so much time working, it's important that it's fun.
We put sustainability in the heart of everything we do. Each and every person's work is dedicated to a greater purpose, to make a change in the world by building an environment that is focused on people and a sustainable future.
It's important for us to understand the story that the clients are trying to see, so that we can then ask the questions that allow us to add value to the contract. We then interpret those questions with the answers that were provided to provide the vision that the client wants to achieve in the future.
Technology is transforming the way that we operate as a business. By using innovative tools, we can be more creative and challenge more aspects to the traditional approach of design. This enables us to explore more options and provide better solutions to our clients.
What makes us unique is that we're really easy to work with and we want to make a difference. We're big enough to deliver large, complex projects, but still small enough to maintain that personal touch.
We're all about realising the potential of our projects and talent and positively impacting our one planet.
The Middle East gives us an amazing opportunity to work on some exciting projects, and we look forward to the future.
Welcome back, everybody. We are at the final panel of our conference. I hope everyone has found all the panels across the 2 days useful and insightful. But we have one more panel left, and we are going to be exploring the involvement of design and modular construction opportunities for Saudi Arabia, and look at the improvements that are being made in today's interiors, prefabricated buildings across the country. So joining us today is Cundall's Technical Director for Building Services, the Director of Structural Design for the Middle East and Asia, Katerra, Mohammed Al Rufaiey, and finally the Director at the National Centre for Building and Construction Technology, Bandar Alkahlan. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. It's great to have you with us. And once again, I'd like to give a small summary of each of our panelists today for the consideration of those who are tuning in from outside the region. So Tony Owens has over 25 years experience working in consultancy design and delivering projects in the healthcare, commercial, retail, scientific, pharmaceutical, and industrial sectors of the construction industry. Ayad leads Katerra's structural design in the region and brings over 16 years of experience in the modular, precast and off-site construction and prefabricated volumetric design and build solutions. And finally, Bandar is the director and researcher at the National Centre for Building and Construction Technology at the King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology, and has extensive knowledge about designing adaptable buildings. So let's dive straight in. The design and modular construction methods are, they're gaining a lot of attention at the moment as we learn to adapt to a different way of operating as a business to deal with, difficulties such as the global pandemic at the moment. I want to start off the conversation to discuss stakeholder involvement. If any of you tuned into our UAE equivalent of our leaders conferences last week, stakeholder collaboration was a really big topic at the moment, and it seems to be very big across the region. So I'd like to know, first of all, from our panel today, which stakeholders can benefit more from modular construction at the moment? Tony, perhaps you'd like to kick things off for us.
Sure. I think the manufacturers really have the most potential to gain from this sector of the construction industry. I think it's very much at its infancy stages when you consider the potential that there is to gain, really the manufacturers are providing solutions, and if they're prepared to innovate, I think they can improve their percentage of the market in terms of offsite delivery versus traditional. By engaging with clients and design teams and collaborating at the early stages of projects, they've got a lot of experience that they can transfer across to designers, because I think design teams as a whole don't have a huge experience in dealing with the modular market. It does require a collaborative approach. If it doesn't have it, I think it's fraught with problems, because as we all know, once the modular sections start to be built, it's very expensive to start making changes. Therefore, you need to have everything signed off upfront at a very early stage. So I think manufacturers, by introducing innovative processes into their delivery methods, are probably the ones that will gain the greatest share of the market.
Okay. And Bandar, what's your views on stakeholder collaboration within Saudi Arabia in particular? Do you think it's going to benefit sort of the acceleration of modular construction going forward in the kingdom?
Sure. So I would like to start with, look at it from the top view. We have 4 parties taking, let's say, the lead into make this viable. So we have the regulator as a one party. The second, we will have the modular construction factories. We have the real estate investors, then the end user. So if we focus on the middle of this complete ecosystem, which is the modular manufacturing companies, and dive deep in the details. So we will have many different sectors. So we need to focus first into the value chain itself of the factory and what they're planning to produce or get as end product for the end user. Second is the supply chain as well. How can we get the different supply chain working together within the kingdom? So first, I think to get a successful model for a modular factory in the kingdom is to make a survey and try to get all these different parties working together. Second is, what is the modular construction method that we're going to focus on? So I think there's 2 streams. One is transfer and localize an existing technology abroad to expedite the process and meet the short-term goals. Second is to start to work with R&D and I, which is research, development, and innovation, and start from scratch to develop a complete new system that can meet the demand and the need of the end user. So I'm not sure if you know that, but as we all know that we have a goal initiated by the Ministry of Housing to build over 1.5 million homes. And to meet that, we need to raise the number of industrial solutions. So one of the issues, if we look at the current industrial solutions, we don't have more than 5%, and this is basically reflecting the precast companies for construction, on-site construction. So to meet that demand, we need to raise this number at least to 45 or 50%. And adapting such a modular construction technology would benefit, the goal of Ministry of Housing to meet this goal.
And Ayad, what do you think about what Tony and Bandar have said so far? Would you agree or would you disagree? Do you think something else needs to be done? And what are you doing particularly at Katerra within stakeholder collaboration? Ayad, your mic is on mute. There we go.
Yeah, I completely agree with Bandar. The collaboration is the key for successful modular construction, and we at Katerra understand that, and we bring all the assemblies, the trades together, and we try to serve end-to-end kind of business and service to our clients. And it is happening now. We're thinking modular construction based on technology, based on the automation, just not the modern technology that is known for ages now. The technology has evolved and we also evolving with it. So the modular construction, the vision that we have is a complete end-to-end service, end-to-end from the design, construction, production, automation, intelligent, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, all of this together. And it is happening. It is something we are working on it. And we've been studying this, and we have a clear vision of how to go further from here.
Okay. And I don't want COVID to dominate kind of the majority of our discussion today, but I do feel it's quite important to talk about this. So again, Ayad, I'll come to you first of all. I want to know from you, how accessible is the availability of facilities for modular construction in Saudi Arabia? Have you noticed any challenges that you face, particularly with the global pandemic?
Well, as my colleague said in the beginning, Bandar, the modular construction can come in different ways. It ranges from 2D prefabricated elements to a fully 3D serviced cells that is fully equipped with everything. So availability of facilities really depending on what type of modular construction in the questions. So yes, there's some challenges in the availability of facilities. The good news is we at Katerra are starting a state-of-art facility in King Abdullah City for modular construction, fully automated. So it is starting now in Saudi Arabia. We have seen other factories, they do a modular construction, different method, less sophisticated method. But I think it is somehow challenging, yeah.
Okay. And Tony, Cundall is obviously doing quite a lot in Saudi Arabia at the moment. What are the challenges and kind of limitations have you faced as a business in terms of modular construction, and how have you overcome them as a business?
I think the type of, traditionally, I think there's always been an amount of prefabrication available in Saudi Arabia, but dedicated to different sectors of the industry. We've always had prefabricated solutions for site accommodation, oil and gas, temporary structure, that type of thing. I think with the demand for housing that's going to be required in the next 10 years, there has to be a different way of thinking, a different way of delivering housing to meet those needs. So I think the construction industry is probably bedded down in a delivery method that involves a design, a bid, and a build process or stages. And the industry as a whole, I think, needs to get away from that and adopt a more integrated process where we engage with stakeholders early, get them on board and get them involved in the design process. But that means that you require a supply chain that is a bit more sophisticated, has the necessary tools to allow all stakeholders contribute equally, and allow the consistency and the continuation of the design process to follow through into the manufacturing phase, if you like, and then the on-site assembly. I think if those skills and attributes of the process are brought along by more construction professionals, then I think we have a more open mind, then I think a lot more can be developed and a lot more delivered in a much shorter period of time. But I think it requires us all as an industry or industry participants to engage in this process and agree to adopt this different approach.
Okay. And modular construction in particular has been touted as pivotal for changing infrastructure across a range of sectors since the start of the pandemic. There's been real big movements in how infrastructure needs to be changed for the likes of education sector or the healthcare sector and fitness, gyms and things like that to align with the social distancing rules that are in place. Bandar, what have you noticed in Saudi Arabia in particular to comply with these government guidelines? Are these changes being made? Is modular construction kind of the answer to this?
I believe yes, and I think what happened with the past few months going through with the pandemic situation has opened some eyes into focusing how can we handle such a future circumstances. So one of the solutions, and specifically if we look at the healthcare, how can we get the designers and the engineers working and understanding the limitations and benefits of modular construction and develop new solutions to make what we call a portable virus testing centers. So it will be fast, quick to handle and control the crisis. Second is how can we pre-plan from now for any future difficulties that can be handled as the same way. And one of the things that is just to move from traditional way of construction and move into more, let's say, industrial solutions, such as modular construction. And to do that, the same thing, if we want to adapt a modular construction, the same way that we have it 40 years ago, it will be the same time needed for the typical construction. So that's why there is a need now and to move from a traditional way of building or production line to more automated solutions to expedite the process and face such a crisis in the future.
And Ayad, Katerra is heavily involved with some big projects in Saudi Arabia at the moment. Again, it'd be good to get your views on what the approach is for Katerra now. Have you had to change kind of your strategies in adopting more sort of modular construction methods?
Right, now, as far as the construction is concerned regarding the COVID-19, modular construction, for obvious reasons, is a far less labor intensive. So that makes it easier for safer distancing. And I'll give you a very solid example. Like we operate in Saudi in KSA. We have 2,000 people working there. And during all this time, we haven't shut down any of our facilities or sites or everything. So we were very operational during this time, and we had very limited and controlled cases. So from a construction point of view, a modular can bring benefits in this subject. Now, again, it really depends on the demand and the designers and the design firms on what really works to overcome this situation. And we believe that modular construction, as Bandar said, healthcare facilities can be a very good solution for portable isolations, rooms, centers that can be mobile, can be moved from place to place, and I think this brings great benefits to the situation.
And one of the other big talking points at the moment is PPBC, which is, for those that don't know what that stands for, it's known as prefabricated, pre-finished volumetric construction, which is being regarded as the next step in modular construction. There was quite an interesting statistic that I came across recently that currently less than 1% of buildings within the region are built using PPBC construction. So, Tony, can you elaborate a little bit more on what you've noticed in terms of progression with PPBC in Saudi Arabia?
I think it's only beginning to be introduced as an alternative modular delivery method. It has advantages, I suppose, but it also has disadvantages. I think in terms of the advantages, you're building a significant amount of your project off-site, maybe 50 to 80% of it off-site, in a controlled environment. You're going to get very good quality, very little waste, consistent quality as well, because you're in a controlled setting when the manufacturing is being carried out. So the build quality should be superior. And when you put all that together, I think you've got a very good product. The downside or the other side of the coin is that you have got logistical issues to consider, transportation issues plus costs to go with that, because it's probably more expensive to deliver a large number of volumetric units rather than single panels that could be assembled on site. I suppose people would also say it's not necessarily a sustainable practice because you've got transportation costs. So if you're transferring modules from Jeddah to Riyadh, that's not going to look very good on the sustainability front. So I think it comes back to the solutions that companies have to provide to stakeholders, clients. They need to look at it at early in the design to decide what is the best solution for this particular client. Because there are a number of factors to be considered, and it's not a simple volumetric or not volumetric decision. So I think the more people involved in the design process, the better the decision making and the selection of the solutions and the outcomes.
Okay, but Bandar, what are your views on this? What's the progression going on in terms of PBVC in Saudi Arabia that you're noticing in particular?
I think there is a main focus on this specific construction method, and as we all know, the Ministry of Housing initiated the Building Technology Stimulus Initiative. Working with the SIDF, which is the Saudi Industrial Development Fund. And the government have assigned over 13 billion SAR to fund a new factory and transfer the technology and develop it and work on innovation solutions. So there is a clear direction about the future of modular construction in the kingdom. The second is, I think, the RD&I, which is research, development, and innovation, and taking this as an important task. Starting, as I said at the beginning, we have two streamlines. One is having what we call a quick wins to work with the demand currently we have. The second is to start from the beginning, looking into what do we need to have been tackled internally, working with local materials, local suppliers, making sure that there is no need to import materials from outside the kingdom. This is a crucial. So in case in the future there is a shortage in the materials, that's going to be difficult. While if we focus mainly within a complete solution with the supply chain and looking into the ecosystem, let's say, solution in general, that will help into meeting our goals. What we do, if you just give me 1 minute, for the past 2 years, we have been working intensively inside our center here to develop and look into a production line, automated production line for modular construction. Trying to adapt. At the beginning, we have started to look into what is available around the world in terms of technology, what are they faced in terms of difficulties. And then after spending 1 year of researching, we started into developing the process. Having said that when we have focused on developing the process, we were not just looking into building the modular itself, no. We were looking at the complete different systems. Like we have been working with the structural system by itself, the enclosure system as well, the surfaces system, and then at the end, which is the finished system. So I might then elaborate with some of these details in the continuous discussion.
Okay. I want to move the next part of the discussion onto the materials available for prefab, especially internally in Saudi Arabia. Ayad, perhaps you could sort of give us and our viewers, an insight into what materials that Katerra uses, especially for its projects.
Right. Now in KSA, the availability of raw materials and the expertise of concrete makes the first choice actually in Saudi Arabia. But even with that, we're still looking at a different kind of materials to a specific requirements, because we understand there is a limitation of maybe weights, logistics, and we understand that we might need to go to LGS, light gauge steel, or maybe even the CLT, even a cross-laminated timber. We understand that demand, and we are looking at it, and we are brainstorming all the options that we have. But mainly, we are focusing now on concrete because it's widely available locally, and it is somehow regulated by the building codes for the public sectors.
Okay. And Tony, what sort of material demands are you noticing, particularly with Cundall, with working on certain projects in Saudi?
It's predominantly concrete and steel, I think, but that's probably driven somewhat by compliance issues. So there are requirements for fire rating and structural stability of these structures. So these materials are understood by the people who provide approvals for the structures. And it's a matter of, I suppose, getting people to change the mindset and trying to get them to consider approving alternative materials and methods for these solutions. Because again, it comes back to the innovative side of this. You've got to look at your supply chain, what's available in the local market, the security and stability of supply. How can you implement those materials and those methods into your delivery process, still obtain the necessary authority approvals, and have a product that's completed on time? Because we all know that the approval stage can be the risk in the schedule, and people, if they are trying to avoid those risks, will stick with what they know, and they won't consider alternatives. So I think there's a responsibility there between designers, between manufacturers and the authorities to have these conversations about alternative methods and try and get them introduced to the authorities and get them to buy in, and again, it's got to be a collaborative process. And so that when they are presented with these as formal applications, that they're not rejected, and they actually engage with the stakeholders to give them the time and the opportunity to explain what they're trying to do, because nobody's out to try and deliver an inferior product. Everybody is trying to make a name for themselves in the market, so they're offering the best solutions that they believe give clients the best value for money.
Okay. And Bandar, I can see you shaking your head, nodding your head up and down there. Do you agree, obviously, with what Tony's saying?
Yes. I would like to add to that as well. In order to achieve a successful, let's say, manufacturing process, we need to start thinking of, and this is what we did internally within the center. We started by looking at and gathering the researchers as the designers as well, and engineers, and we give them a very simple exercise. If you want to go for modular, what do we need to do? So we started thinking about the two concepts usually utilized within the engineering schools, which is design for manufacturing and design for assembly, because there is a huge difference between these, construction method and assembly method. So this is getting back to the question: what is the local materials? It used to be concrete, and because this is what we have been using in the past, is a typical and traditional way of building projects. But now, since when we started thinking about design for manufacturing and assembly, we found out there are various kind of different materials available locally, and we started to make some exercise and then tested all of them in terms of the environmental solutions, and as well, how can we implement smart systems to them? So we have developed what we call smart walls, we have developed what we call smart windows, and smart systems as well to be implemented. And we looked at the modular construction method as a complete system. What I mean by that, we did some exercise looking at what have been automotive and shipbuilding and aircraft industry have been doing, and try to make a similar model. So how can we start with, let's say, a standard modular home, and then how can we upgrade it with different features and different let's say, tools based on the end user needs. So this is one of the things that we have been focusing on to look into. So there's no limitation in terms of the availability of materials internally. All what we did is just searching and looking how can we put these different elements. We start from materials and upgrade it to elements, to components, then to form the modular. At the same time, we have break down the modular system as well into 3 different components, main components. One is the modular itself. Second is the bathroom pods and kitchen cartridges. And the third is the MEP, let's say, what we call trays. So once we looked at it in terms of different components and elements, I think we have achieved some really great results and promising production line that we are hoping to have running maybe by next year.
Excellent. I want to direct the next question to Tony, as Cundall is obviously heavily focused on sustainable development across the region. And as we all know, sustainability is fundamental to our industry. So, Tony, I would like to know, how do you think modular construction can improve sustainability practices, and in particular in Saudi Arabia?
I think there's significant gains to be made by the modular construction sector. The manufacturing process takes place in a controlled setting, first of all. So they're not as impacted as if they would be in an external site setting. So the production process itself is if it's an automated process, digitally engineered, robotic manufacturing processes, there's very little waste in the system. It's much less than it would be if it was in a site situation. So you're only using the materials that you need. There's very little wastage. So that's an important point. I think another area where there are gains is in terms of the materials that you use. If you can move away from the traditional concrete and steel solutions, then you are reducing the amount of embodied carbon that would be accrued in terms of the manufactured modules. And you look at alternative materials there, more natural products that are available. And again, this comes back to the supply chain. What is locally available? What can you use? What can you adapt? So I think just for those 2 factors alone, that you have some very good gains in terms of sustainability. And then I think in terms of operational carbon, the finished product is a much better product in terms of, you can eliminate thermal bridging in your construction through the manufacturing in a factory setting. It's much better quality, it's consistently good. And also the air tightness of structures is also better. So you have a much more advantageous product in terms of the thermal capability of it once it's delivered and assembled on a site condition. So its operational carbon is much reduced compared to a traditional structural frame and block infill equivalent of, just say, for housing, for example. So there are definitely gains on the sustainability side for modular construction.
Okay. And Ayad, would you agree with that, with Tony? Do you think there are gains with sustainability in modular construction? Ayad, you're on my mute again.
All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, I would 100% agree with Tony. And added to that, the main thing, like construction time, you're shaving off 20 to 50% of the project schedule, and that by itself is you're reducing all the construction activities for more sustainable projects. And traffic is reduced. You imagine it's a pre-finished item, pre-finished modular. So all the materials comes with the modular, so you don't have to transport all the different materials, transport the labors. I'll give you an example for normal traditional construction. In our factory, we plan it for 2,000 cubic meter of concrete every day, and that will require, if that is done traditionally, that more than 5,000 labor force. And the plan is in our factory to do that with 150 labor. So that's a huge difference in terms of transportations and logistics and everything. So all that is reduced. So yeah, it's a great gain. It's a very gain in terms of sustainability. Yes, I agree.
Okay, and technology is also something that's creating a lot of discussions and debates recently, particularly with the design and modular construction. Bandar obviously mentioned earlier about the automated production line for modular construction, which is very interesting. So Ayad, what do you think about how can we automate modular construction as a technology method? Do you think?
Right. I don't want to repeat what Bandar said, but yeah, modular is not a new thing. It's been there since World War II. It's always there. What is new actually is the technology. The technology is new, and that's why the fresh wave of interest grown now because of that. How to automate? That is the question, because you have different activities going on here. We have the concreting, and then you have the finishing, and then the assembly, and all of this comes from different companies and different technology, and to bring that together in a very integrated process was very challenging, and it took us lots of thinking and brainstorming and experts to link that and make it practically feasible and working actually on the floor. So it was a challenge, but the thing is, it is again depends on the demand of the market and what we are actually building. So now for Ministry of Housing, for example, we have 14,000 single family units are being built now, and based on that module and that specific requirements, we design our facility for the most efficient way possible. I'll just give you an example why this is very important. Technology has been everything. Now recently, Google, it's a technology company, Amazon technology company, they start invested in a prefab model home. That will tell you that this thing is working and it's gonna have a great future.
Okay. And I want to move on to sort of more the design and interior aspects now of the conversation. We've obviously talked a lot about off-site construction and modular construction. So Tony, what sectors do you believe in particular have evolved in Saudi Arabia with regards to design? Do you think it's like the hospitality sector at all?
I think it's still with residential, healthcare, and education. I think they are still the predominant sectors that take advantage from modular construction, and I think it's primarily because of the replication factor. I think you can employ a lot of manufacturers into this type of and these sectors, because the technology will suit this type of replication, and it does advance sort of an innovative process. If you can come up with alternative materials, alternative methods of construction, and you can get these approved by authorities, I think then overall these sectors are going to be the ones to take advantage of it. Because I think the other thing is you've got to commit early to these things. You've got to engage with the manufacturer and start to develop that integrated process with using technology between the designer, the manufacturers, and hope that everybody gets on board and engages equally and contributes what they can to make the process a success. If everybody on the design team is operating at the same level, then the outcome will be a good one. I think the residential, education, and healthcare sectors are the ones that can take huge gains or advantages from this type of construction, because it does, as the panelists have already said, reduce schedule times. You can deliver a lot of volume in a very short period of time. And there should be cost benefits to everybody across the design team, from designers across the manufacturers and to the end users. there has to be. It's the only way I think companies will succeed in the long term if they can deliver on these basic fundamentals.
Okay. And Bandar, would you agree kind of with Tony's views there? Do you think there's been more progression with interiors within the residential side in Saudi Arabia?
Absolutely, yes. And I would like to add to that as well. One of the problems we have faced at the beginning when we did a kind of survey and look at what could interest the designers and local consultants offices to utilize and adapt the concept of modular construction. And most of them, even internally or internationally, were raising a question of the limitation and the options that can be offered with modular construction methods. And one of the exercises we have done is we have developed what we call a design language. What I mean by that, to make it more flexible, to respect the designer's needs and the end user needs as well. So there's no limitations. We did a set of rules where we can do and reflect the designers and consultant office or even the real estate investors' needs in their project. So there is kind of still a set of rules, but these rules, sometimes an obstacle can be innovate new solutions. And this is what we have been trying to do, to develop the design language to avoid any misunderstanding and the capabilities of modular construction.
Okay. And we've got around 5 or 10 minutes left of the discussion, so I want to get a couple more questions into for you guys. So, Ayad, I'll come to you next. So, I'd like to know from you, from a design and modular construction perspective, where Saudi Arabia sits compared to other GCC markets. We recently virtually attended the Big Five show in Saudi, where there was some big names from the Red Sea Development Company and Mace, who basically agreed as a panel that off-site construction and design is the future of construction in Saudi Arabia, but they believe it's in its very early stages, particularly in the kingdom. What are your thoughts on this, Ayad? Do you think it is in its early stages, and what needs to be done to sort of catch up, with other markets in particular?
Right, as I said, prefabrication can be a wide range of, or modular construction, it's a wide range of products and methods. I believe that in Saudi Arabia, we started already. It's not early stages, it's starting stages. And there are projects in the Red Sea specifically, and also in Jeddah and Mecca, where that method is being used. So it is started, it's not early stages. And what we can do is, as you said, is a collaboration, the investor, the owners seeking new opportunities, public sector to pipelines, projects, and design firms to enable modular construction. So all that collaboration is required to move on with this method and to enable modular construction more. And I'm very optimistic about the future of that method in Saudi Arabia, and I don't think it's very early in Saudi. It's happening, and it will happen, and it is required to happen.
Okay. And Bandar, I can see you nodding your head to that. It'd be good to get your views. Do you agree with Ayad? Do you think it's not in its early stages?
Yes, it's not in the early stage. If you look back into the beginning of initiation of the Saudi Vision 2030, 2016, this is where it started really to focus on new solutions for building technologies. And I totally agree with Ayad that it's not in early stages. In fact, Katerra has a huge plant, and they're handling now over 40,000 units, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So this shows how sophisticated is the construction, a modular construction method now at the kingdom. It's not at the early stage anymore.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think it is more advanced than any other country, especially here in the Middle East, I think KSA may be leading that. Just to be perfectly honest here.
You think leading on a global level?
No, on Middle East. By the way, we have seen the factories, we've seen model construction globally, and we know we can do better, and we're doing better. I mean, comparing with Singapore, Japan, US, we've seen it. It is different, but we know now by sure that we can do better, and we will do better.
Really interesting stuff there. Just final question, just to round off today's discussion. So again, I'd like to know from each of you whether you believe that off-site construction is critical for these massive projects to be completed on time. As you've kind of seen with COVID, that has caused disruptions, but a lot of these big giga projects, such as Katerra, they have managed to continue building. So do you think off-site construction is the answer to make sure all these projects are completed within time frame, Tony?
I think off-site construction is definitely part of the solution, and it will be a major contributor to these projects. Just from the point of view of how you deal with COVID, in an off-site situation, you've got a controlled environment. You can monitor your staff. You can check who comes into site, who goes off-site. You can identify people if they've got COVID, and you can isolate them. So I think the controls that are in place in an off-site setting are definitely going to ensure the productivity remains as high as it possibly can be. So yes, I think even without COVID being part of our landscape for the next 6 or 12 months, off-site construction is definitely going to, I would say, take a bigger percentage of the total construction market. As companies innovate, I think they will begin to demonstrate the advantages in a much stronger fashion and convince stakeholders and end users what they can actually provide as an overall solution to an infrastructure strategy that might be developed by the kingdom. So I think it's definitely part of the long-term solution for delivering infrastructure and facilities within the kingdom.
Okay. And Bandar, some final thoughts from you. What's your outlook for design and modular construction for the kingdom?
I think what is more important to focus on is the future expansion for all of these giga projects. So it will be less environmental and pollution, less environmental and noise pollution for existing projects. And this is really important to focus on how value we can add by adapting modular construction solutions for future expansion for these giga projects. And Ayad, to round off the panel, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm happy to hear from your previous panelists. I think Christopher and Ash, they have a very positive comments on the modular construction and the precast, and hearing that from different firms, it's very nice to hear. I believe personally, and my company and our vision believe that modular construction is part of 2030. It's an important part, if it's not the only part. The vision is futuristic and sustainable, and this is modular construction. The modular construction that we understand now, it is futuristic and sustainable and high tech. So I think it is the vision to 2030.
Excellent. And that concludes our conference. Thank you very much, Tony, Ayad, and Bandar, for your expertise in the field of design and modular construction in Saudi Arabia. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to all of you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who has made this event possible. Our editorial team, events team, our speakers, and not forgetting our sponsors, who are gold sponsor Mott MacDonald, silver sponsors Cundall, HKA, Resa Gulf Scaffolding, and NEOM, our legal partner Reed Smith, as well as our sector regulator, Saudi Contractors Authority. Please feel free to drop a line to me to see what you think about our virtual KSA conference. Obviously, we would have liked to have been in Riyadh this year, but that's not been possible. And we will obviously be returning next year for more insights from experts across Saudi Arabia's construction sector. But in the meantime, please feel free to share any thoughts or feedback to myself, and you can reach me on ashley.williams@itp.com. Have a great day, and we will see you very soon. Thank you.
NEOM is inspiring,
motivating,
is a platform of dreamers and doers.
We talk about NEOM as an accelerator of human progress. It's a place where we can start again almost and make a very positive impact on the world and the environment. A place for dreamers and doers, as we say.
NEOM is the opportunity to develop something brand new.
And so the opportunity to come in and start shaping the future is such an incredible opportunity. I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by some great minds and great talents. We are pioneers in a new space.
This is a very new part of Saudi Arabia for the young generation.
We've set our standards very high.
What we want to do in NEOM is change the idea of urban elements. We want to redefine them.
Better humans, better society, interact with technology.
We want this project to show the world that you can develop a world futuristic city, but also in harmony with nature.
NEOM is called the world's most ambitious project. So I don't think anyone can move down here without it saying it's not going to be a challenge. But I think for anyone that does come, it'll be such a rewarding experience.
What they define in NEOM, I think, is a great opportunity to be the best we ever imagined or dreamed to be as a human.
We will be working, I'm sure, day and night just to see this dream come true.
I feel responsibility. We are building something for the future generations.
We're not talking about pure sustainability, but we're actually talking about enhancing the environment and bringing water back to the surface in NEOM.
It's a place where we're going to reinvent conservationism, where there's going to be exceptional livability.
The journey of transforming the dream of NEOM.
We are building something for the future generations.
We're not talking about pure sustainability, but we're actually talking about enhancing the environment and bringing water back to the surface in NEOM.
It's a place where we're going to reinvent conservationism, where there's going to be exceptional livability.
The journey of transforming the dream of NEOM to reality is already on.
NEOM is the perfect destination where you are proactively involved in bringing health and well-being in every single part of your life. So when talking about NEOM, people ask me, how do you describe NEOM? NEOM is the new future.
NEOM is the opportunity to develop something brand new.
It's an accelerator of human progress.
The world is in flux. Every day we face new challenges which demand us to think differently, to always balance algorithms and instincts, to embrace experts and entrepreneurs, to combine virtual and reality, to think laterally and search out the connections others fail to make. At Mott MacDonald, we look at challenges from a fresh perspective. We never stop asking, what if? We are pioneers with a thirst for innovation. Our restless curiosity propels us and our clients forward, turning obstacles into sustainable pathways, never losing sight of the human impact of our actions and the responsibility that this entails. With every project, we create a new space, a space to think, a space to challenge, a space to question, a space to partner, a space to grow. A space for open opportunities. We're Mott MacDonald. We open opportunities with connected thinking.
For us, it's about creating collaborative working environments with our clients and making work enjoyable. It's not about what we do, but how we do it. We spend so much time working, it's important that it's fun.
We put sustainability in the heart of everything we do. Each and every person's work is dedicated to a greater purpose, to make a change in the world by building an environment that is focused on people and a sustainable future.
It's important for us to understand the story that the clients are trying to see, so that we can then ask the questions that allow us to add value to the contract. We then interpret those questions with the answers that were provided to provide the vision that the client wants to achieve in the future.
Technology is transforming the way that we operate as a business. By using innovative tools, we can be more creative and challenge more aspects to the traditional approach of design. This enables us to explore more options and provide better solutions to our clients. What makes us unique is that we're really easy to work with and we want to make a difference. We're big enough to deliver large, complex projects, but still small enough to maintain that personal touch.
We're all about realising the potential of our project and talent and positively impacting our one planet.
The Middle East gives us an amazing opportunity to work on some exciting projects, and we look forward to the future.